Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly and it's time to hop. It is time for the monthly YouTube scrapbook sketch hop where I do my take on a particular sketch and so do 6 other ladies from other creative backgrounds, and it's so much fun. So a couple weeks ago, I created this pocket recipe scrapbook layout as part of my Sparkle and Shine Autumn to Remember 12-page scrapbooking workshop, and I thought what a perfect opportunity to just continue on in that series and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So these are all of the pattern papers and the specialty papers that are left in the Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop Kit. We still have 12 by 12 sticker sheets. We still have some great punch-out die cuts that come right in the kit, and lots of bits that I still have in my junk gypsy tray, including some craft die cut punch-outs that come right in the kit, some extra golden woven leaves that I added to the workshop. Now there's some great title opportunities in those craft die cuts. There's Blessed, Grateful, and Thanks, and that's really cool that those are left because the theme of this month's sketch hop is things that you are grateful for. There's those golden leaves that I just love. They're kind of a woven mesh. And then I've added some twine from my stash. Now we're going to be scrapbooking today, a family tradition of ours to make caramelled apples. And I actually went to the Cricut and cut a few little caramelled apples on the Cricut, some extra leaves because we always need extra leaves when it comes to fall layouts, a couple little acorns and a basket of apples, which is adorable. Now I'll link the M numbers if you are a Design Space person. I'll link those in the description, or I'll list those in the description. So here are so many photos of making caramelled apples last year, not this year, but last year in 2023. I have 4 of my granddaughters out of 6 granddaughters. I have 8 grandkids, and also my brother Jim. You see him here. He is with us this fall, and it ended up being our last fall with him because we lost him this past summer. And so that's really, really special that we have pictures of Uncle Jim or my brother Jim in these photos. And then my daughter Emily was there as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But actually, Joan Bartel is the one who chose our sketch, and she chose this sketch, and it's actually a 2021 sketch from Page Maps, and she said that the theme could be Thanksgiving, fall, or it could be anything we're grateful or thankful for. So I actually love this concept, but I feel like we can take it even beyond the sketch. It's a pretty basic sketch with actually just a couple pieces of paper in it. So I'm going through the leftover pattern papers that I have in my Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop Kit and looking at the colors in the tablecloth, looking at the colors, of course, the fall colors with the caramelled apples. We have like Reese pieces and nuts and caramel. And then we have a fall tablecloth. I'm wearing a fall apron. Most of the grandchildren are wearing their pajamas. So they actually got up. Grandma made them caramel French toast, which there goes my Grandmother of the Year award because I gave them caramel French toast and we were making carameled apples. So too much sweet. But I'm looking at the sketch and I'm trying to figure out the measurements. I feel like that upper striped pattern in the sketch is about 5 by 7, and I'm thinking I could go with either 3 or 4 for the little side panel there, and I can probably get by instead of a whole strip. I can get by with about 2.5 inches on either side, I'm thinking. So I'll probably want a bigger pattern like the leaf pattern, and then I love this graph paper that comes in the workshop kit, and I have a funky piece left because the last layout that I did had some triangles in it. And I was hoping to be able to use the odd shaped piece so I don't have to cut into a whole second piece. And I'm just kind of eyeballing and trying to decide about how big I think this is. Now this is an 8.5 by 11 sketch, and I'm going to pump that up to a 12 by 12 because I'm a 12 by 12 scrapper. So I end up going with a 7.5 by 6.5, and the 7.5 is going to be vertical and the 6.5 is going to be horizontal. So the Cajun Craze pattern paper is 5 by 7. The Early Espresso graph paper is 6.5 by 7.5. And then the smaller side pieces are going to be 2.5 by 3.5 is what I went with. So there'll be 4 of those side pieces. And then I don't quite have enough of the Cajun Craze pattern paper to duplicate that pattern on the right side. So I'm just going to kind of hold that thought for a minute because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do on the right page. I do know that I want a ton of photos on this layout, but I also know that I love layered fall layouts. I love large fall bits on my fall layouts. And I think I want to use this punch out that comes right in the kit, and it's a scribble circle. Now I love that they gave us a scribble circle, but I'm also going to link in the description another YouTube video I did on how to create your own scribble circle on the Cricut in minutes just using a free shape. So what I'm actually doing is I'm being really chintzy and I'm cutting out the little piece of pattern paper. It isn't that much that I'm saving, but I'm cutting out a little piece of pattern paper because I'm making 12 pages out of this. And so this will be the 4th page if we get this 2-page layout done tonight. And so I want every little last loving bit of pattern paper that I can so I can stretch my workshop. Now I've pulled out some Early Espresso ink and my sponge dauber or my mini ink blending tool, and I'm just experimenting because I don't like the stark white of the scribble circle. I really want that to be a fall brown. And so now I'm bringing out Pecan Pie, and I'm just trying to decide if I want it dark like the Early Espresso or if I want it to be Pecan Pie. And I've decided that Pecan Pie is the winner. And so I've sped this up quite a bit because it does take a minute to cover the whole scribble circle. And I'm not doing a smooth job. I want it to be a little bit blotchy. In fact, we're going to splatter on this and do a little bit more treatment on this to give it that rustic fall look. So I think fall is one of the easiest seasons to scrap because of all the bits. It's easy to find fall icons. It's a lot easier in my mind to do fall layouts than it is to do any other season. Right now I've finished the inking on the scribble circle and I'm just pulling out all my pieces. Now normally when I do Cricut cuts, I ink the pieces before I assemble the Cricut cuts, but I assembled everything and I wasn't sure that I was going to ink, and I think we're going to ink all the leaves. We're going to ink the basket of apples. We're going to ink everything. But I just wanted to show you here when it's a delicate piece, like the delicate leaves, you want to pounce instead of rub. So on those other pieces, I really rubbed on the edges. But if it's a delicate piece that you've cut or it's an intricate piece, then you want to just kind of pounce on it. You can also pounce on those gold leaves, the mesh leaves. And I don't know which title I'm going to use, but I know throughout the whole workshop that I'm going to want to distress the craft pieces. So I'm just going to distress all of them since we have our ink out. Now I'm happy with how the wreath looks at this point, but I do think I want to splatter some more ink on the wreath. I want to distress all the edges of all the pieces with either an edge of a scissor or if you have an edge distresser, and then ink those edges after you've distressed. So I did that on all the pattern paper, and then I'm pressed some of the early espresso ink into my all-purpose mat, added a spritz of water, and I'm just splattering all over that wreath, just randomly. And then I'm going to do the same thing all over the white background. Now, lots and lots of the white background is going to be covered except for the outer edge, like almost a square all the way around is going to still show once we put all the pattern paper pieces that are accounted for in this sketch, plus the scribble circle, plus all of the layered bits that I want to put around it. Not too much is going to show. So just kind of like tap, tap, tap. You can grab some bigger blobs and bigger dots if you want to, but I just want a little. It doesn't need to be a lot. So we're distressing the edges, we're inking the edges, we're doing a little bit of splatter, and we're just making it look like a dirty fall. We have a very dirty fall around here. It's not a pretty fall. It's everything is kind of dusty and dirty, but I love a beautiful fall, but it gives it the aged fall look that the pecan pie. So I shouldn't say dirty. It just gives it that nice distressed look. And it also takes some of that stark bluntness away from the edges. So now I'm going to arrange it, and I'm going to come in, between 1.5 and 2 inches on those pieces on either side, the larger pieces. I think it ends up being about 1.5 on either side. So I just want to toggle those two pieces so that they are kind of from corner to corner on each other, and that I still have enough of the leaf piece for either edge to go all the way to the edge of the paper, because again, we're stretching the sketch from an 8.5 by 11 to a 12 by 12, which is super easy to do. It's usually just making your pieces a little bit wider so you can adapt the sketch. Now, again, this is a pretty plain sketch. You can see that there's basically 2 pieces of either pattern paper or cardstock with a long piece running under it and 2 photos. That's it. And they don't show a lot of embellishments. I think they added 3 flowers on it, and they showed where the title goes. Sometimes the more generic the sketch, the more open your mind, and it's really easy to take that sketch in any direction. Now I'm pulling a 1/4 inch sticker off of the sticker sheet. And again, I'm being chintzy with it. I'm just going to use just enough to place those pieces of that sticker on the bottom of the leaf pieces. And then I actually even have a little bit left over after I do all 4 pieces with that bottom sticker. And I actually put that right back on my sticker sheet, because again, when you're stretching to 12 pages from a 6-page workshop, which is the company workshop, comes with a 6-page instruction guide for a company 6-page workshop, which is really, really cute also. So if you only needed like 6 fall pages, you could just grab the company workshop called Autumn to Remember. It'll be linked in the description. Pull the instructions out, and they show you exactly how to cut your paper and do those 6 pages. But what I do with the workshop kit is I stretch it by adding more cardstock and other little bits to it to a 12-page workshop. And I love doing that. But when I'm stretching, I have to be a little more chintzy with my paper and a little more creative with my fillers and my ideas to fill. So I'm loving the way the wreath looks now. I like the idea of hooking a corner piece of paper in the lower left corner of the scribble circle and in the upper right corner of the scribble circle. Now, on the sketch that Joanne picked, it's 2 photos, 2 3x4 photos. So I actually have 15 3x4 photos. And I'm like, if this is one morning, we did carameled apples one morning with all the kids. And so of course I'm going to use signature flip flaps. If you're not familiar with flip flaps, they're a little pocket, clear window pocket that allows you to add extra photo opportunities. There's adhesive on a top strip of the pocket. You can get side flipping flip flaps, top flipping flip flaps, and bottom flipping stocking flip-flaps, which is a tongue twister, and you actually just fold the flap over and hide the flap underneath wherever you're creating. And so you can hide it underneath a photo. You can adhere flip-flaps right to the top of page protectors over the top of the decorative elements where you want to put them. You can cut slits in your page protector so that the page protectors stick through and they're interactive, so that you're actually able to interact with the flip-flaps without pulling your pages out of the page protectors. So it's a little bit, it's not tricky, it's not hard, but you have to think about how the flip-flaps are going to flip open, so how you're going to put your photos in there. So you'll have a base photo. So on my 3x4 photos, I have a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 white daisy around each photo, and then we'll have a base underneath that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then we'll put one photo one way, flip it up, put the other photo the other way, and then put a base photo or some journaling on the bottom. So I just went through all the photos and figured out how I wanted it. Now I did a double flip flap on a focal photo there because I decided to remove the second photo that's on the sketch because I love, love, love that large basket of apples. And so I think what I'll do is I'll get 4 photos on the left page by doing a double flip flap, plus there'll be hidden journaling underneath. On the right page, I'll have 4 flip flaps, 2 that fold down, 2 that fold up. One of those flip flaps will have hidden journaling, and I think I'll journal underneath my brother Jim's photo and talk a little bit about him since he's no longer with us, and it's a very special photo of him with the girls. The girls adore him. All of the grandkids adore him. He's crazy Uncle Jim. He was crazy Uncle Jim, kind of like Uncle Buck or I don't know. He was always so funny, and we miss him so much. And he was crazy and funny, and he was always teasing the kids. Now, I didn't know what to do on the right page because I don't have enough Cajun Craze pattern paper. And so I thought I would do some color balancing. Since we have the old olive apples on the left page, I thought we could go ahead and use the same size old olive on the right page, and then we've got color balance. I just wasn't sure how that was going to work. So again, same sizes on the right. The early espresso brown paper is going to be the same size as the Cajun Craze pattern paper on the left page, which was 5x7. The old olive cardstock is going to be the same size as the graph paper, early espresso graph paper on the left, which was 6.5 by 7.5, and the 7.5 is the vertical. So since they're so close in size, you want to make sure that the longest part is vertical on this particular layout. Now, I go back and forth trying to decide, should early espresso be on the top? Should it be on the bottom? Should I have them toggled? Should I have them identical? How should I have them? And I actually decide on linear photos, putting two on the top and 2 on the bottom. And I actually end up making them even with each other. I was contemplating toggling them and having the right ones a little bit lower, and I actually just go all the way across and I put them evenly across from each other. And so this is incredible how many photos you can get when you use flip flaps. And flip flaps were a signature of close to my heart, and thankfully Stampin' Up! Has picked up the flip flaps, and I believe that they purchased the patent for those. So they were patented by Close to My Heart, and Stampin' Up! Purchased some of the intellectual property of Close to My Heart when they closed, and flip flaps were one of those items that all makers everywhere and demonstrators now, I'm sure, are so happy that we have them. So I'm taking a striped pattern paper. And it is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, which I forgot to say is the same on the left page, 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 stripe. And then I decided to share the love between the colors. So because I don't have any Cajun craze on the right page, I'm going to do a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mat of Cajun Craze cardstock. We have a crushed curry 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, two of those. And so we're going to toggle the two crushed curries on the two corners. I'm going to put 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 photo mats on each of those, and then the photos in the flip flaps. And so I'll have the journal spot under Uncle Jim's photo on the lower right of the right page. All the rest will be photos. So that's incredible. We'll have 3 photos on the top left of the right page, 3 photos on the bottom for 6, 3 photos on the upper right for 9, 2 photos on the Uncle Jim's side, which will be 11, and 4 photos on the left page with the 2 double opening flip flaps for a total of 15 photos on one layout. And what I love about that is that we're not giving up the decorative element for the functional photo element. We're still going to have so many decorations on this page. We are going to embellish until the cows come home. Fall is my fave. And layering leaves. I started to say earlier in the video that fall to me is one of the easiest seasons to scrap because you have apples, you have pumpkins, you have leaves, you have, you can do wagons and baskets, and you can do, obviously Halloween is in the fall as well. There is so much trees. You can do so much in the fall to embellish. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to tack with my fine tip glue pen. I'm going to tack the scribble circle down in like maybe 3, 4, 5 spots. I want it to stay loose and a little bit bumpy and wavy, and you'll see that toward the end that little bits and pieces of it are actually going to stick up higher than others. And don't worry, it will slide nicely in your page protector. I do like to really go back in when I'm done with videos and when I'm done with my layouts and really secure down the base of my pieces. I like to leave the tips out. Even though they do get pressed down in the page protector a little bit, it still gives them a dimensional look within the page protector. And I really love that look, and it makes it look a lot more realistic. So now I've adhered my apple basket in place, and I'm just grabbing some bits and looking at some bits. I contemplate putting Grateful exactly where the sketch shows the title. And it kind of blends into the Cajun craze. So I'm kind of looking for some strips and some extra pieces to see if maybe there's something that I could put under that title to jazz it up or to make it stand out a little bit. And I end up deciding to put it on the basket. And I lay it on the basket so I can think about it and I can work on all the other bits. And then I lay it on the basket and I decide. Now I end up having a little boo-boo over on the right where I made a mess of the flip flap, and I tore it back up and I tore a little bit of the pattern paper. So we're going to need to put like a little sentiment piece up there, but it's actually a really natural spot for a cluster or a sentiment. So I'm not worried about it. It's going to get covered up. So I decide to go ahead and put the 2 caramel apples to balance out the basket of apples. So I have such a large element on the lower right that I really want to balance it with a large cluster on the upper left of the left page. And there's not quite enough room for the big elements on the right page. And I do want a visual triangle. So if I have the carameled apples and a cluster on the upper left of the circle, then I'll have the big basket on the lower right of the circle. I'll probably want to do something on the upper right of the right page so your eye goes down across the photo on the left page and up all the way across all the photos on the right page, just a basic scrapbooking principle in terms of the rules of 3 and clusters of 3 and visual triangles, something that I learned years ago from close to my heart and that I still use today. And it doesn't always have to be a perfect triangle. It's just whatever draws your eye across the focal elements. If you want to draw the viewer's eye across your journaling, then you'll make a visual triangle over the journaling. Now, the visual triangle can be all on one page, or the visual triangle can cross over into both pages. So now I've sped this up quite a bit, even though it might not seem like it, because this is the part that I love, and this is the part that is basically the heavy lifting. The background was so simple. I guess the heavy lifting was maybe in the flip flaps, because that does take a minute to figure out, like, which ones do you want on top? Which ones do you want to flip up? Do you want journaling hidden underneath? But the base of the layout was a breeze, and now it's just all about the clustering. So you're going to put some anchor pieces in the cluster, and most of the leaves are about the same size. So I usually kind of try to have one leaf going in one direction, one leaf going in another direction, and then maybe having some kind of a flourish come out in the middle of the two leaves. So you kind of have, most clusters have at least 3 in them. You can do less, and I'm not going to fill up the whole entire wreath. I'm just going to put some strategic clusters. Now, the beauty of this is you can put yours wherever you want to. If you don't like where I'm putting mine, don't worry and don't stress, and write me a note that says, I don't know why you put so much cluster on the top and none on the bottom. It's because I like it that way. So you do you, boo. You do it the way you like it. And that's the beauty. You can watch how I do it and change yours up and do your take on the way that you like to cluster. But I just kind of want a few little pieces, and it's beautiful. I love fall clusters. Who doesn't? I'm going to say I do have some paper crafters that do not like fall. And I know, shocking, I know, but the reason they don't is they live in a geographical area that is really dreary in the fall. And even though we kind of have brown fall here in South Dakota, like we don't have the beautiful New England fall, I still love fall, and I love the idea of fall. Even if fall only looks like that kind of a fall in a photo, I still love to do my fall photos that way. So caramelled apples. So I have been doing caramelled apples. I tell everybody it's been 30 years, but I honestly started doing caramelled apples, I think, when I was 22. So it's been well over 30 years. So I don't want to age myself here, but I have loved it. And in the early years, I homemade the caramel out of cream and all of those things. And it was a little harder to set when you make homemade caramel. You have to do it right, or it won't stay on the caramelled apple if it's not thick enough. And in these later years, hence the discovery of caramel bits, right? Everything has gotten easier. And honestly, yes, there's no replacement for homemade caramel. Absolutely none. However, the caramel bits do a very good job. And what I do, instead of doing it like it says on the package, is I use cream instead of water when I do the caramel bits. And I'm super careful not to get too much. And then I actually let the caramel sit after it's melted for quite a while, so it's not hot. And because when it's hot, it's more runny. So I kind of let it set up a little bit more, and then I dip the apples, and then I dip them in the goodies, like, the bits of whatever. We do Oreo, we do coconut, we do nut, we do M&M, we do Reese's Pieces, we do Heath is a big one. We do Heath chocolate bits and Heath toffee bits. We do all kinds. And usually I do the caramelled apples most years by myself. But Waylon James, our youngest grandson's birthday is October 15th. We actually have a lot of birthdays and anniversaries in October. And let's see, Carter Kirk's is in October. Claire Adeline's birthday is in October. Waylon James is in October. Our oldest son Colt and his wife's anniversary is in October. Oh my word, so much is in October. Early November is Avery Jean. So it all happens at once. But they, the three little girls that are my daughter's girls, were coming to town. They live about 4.5 hours away, and they were coming to town for Waylon James's birthday on October 15th, because sometimes that's a little too early, you know, for Halloween. And I promised them that we could make all their carameled apples. So I made an enormous batch with them. Then a week later, or 2 weeks later for Halloween, I made all of mine. So that year was like double the carameled apples. So I'm trying to find a little circular bit to kind of pull the cluster together over on the right. I'm getting really, really happy with the clusters on the left, adding some golden leaves to each of those clusters, a couple little golden leaves, and then we will be adding some twine, because what we do to one, we want to do to the other. And I like to try to keep the elements in my workshops consistent. So if I've used a certain technique on one of my layouts in my scrapbooking workshops, I usually like to carry that technique through the whole workshop so that there is a technique that is the theme of the workshop. And that's also something that I learned from close to my heart, and now Stampin' Up! Is doing it as well, where you teach a technique with each workshop. So we're doing a little bit of wrapping of some twine in each of the pages, and we're doing some distressing on each of the pages. We're doing a little bit of splatter and some inking on each of the pages to keep that consistent. So I love that more than words. So I don't know if that was on purpose. I'm assuming it was, but the die cut that says grateful, and then the sticker that says grateful more than words. You could say thankful more than words or grateful more than words. And then I added the days to remember down below. I like having the grateful title on the basket and then having the arrows pointing to the grateful title. I'm adding a little bit of crushed curry ink on the journaling, just so it's not so stark white. And then I'm adding the twine now. So I do want to show you how I'm adding the loops of twine. So on the previous layout in this workshop, I added like 3 fingers worth of twine. So I'm going to press the end into a glue dot, wrap a circle, and another circle, press it into the glue dot, roll the bottom of the glue dot on my finger until that glue dot is wrapped around all 3 strands. Take a piercing tool or something sharp, the edge of your scissors, stick the glue dot onto the end, and then you're able to lift up your cluster and tuck that twine right under that cluster, and it makes it so easy. So let me do one more. So we're going to press it into the glue dot, loop once, loop twice, loop 3 times, press it into the glue dot, roll it onto your fingers, stick it onto a piercing tool, lift up your cluster, tuck it under with the piercing tool, and there you go. Then you can see how easy it is to add the twine to those clusters, and I'm getting so happy. I'm getting happy. Not that happy yet. We're not done yet. We're going to add some punch out craft die cut hearts, and we're going to add some Drusy bling. So DRUSY, little glitter gems, and those are what are part of my materials and supplies in my 12-page Sparkle and Shine workshop. Again, linked in the description is the first video where you can see everything that we're using in this workshop. Also linked in this description will be all of the supplies used on this layout as well. And now I'm getting happy. I'm getting happy. I hope you're happy too, and that you've loved my take on the sketch. I hope you'll check out every single video in the playlist from the Sketch Hop. Those ladies work hard on these videos, and we'll have 7 different takes of the same sketch that Joanne chose. and the theme is thankful, grateful, fall, or Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll hit like, subscribe, the notifications bell, share it with your friends, and shoot me a comment. It's really important to me to hear your comments. They really keep me going and they keep me sharing on YouTube. I love how many photo opportunities, 15 photos without giving up the beautiful fall decorative element. Don't you just love flip-flaps? I'd love to hear if you're a flip-flap user or if you've never heard of flip-flaps before, and I will definitely link our signature flip-flaps in the description because you can now get those amazing flip-flaps from Stampin' Up. Yay, Stampin' Up! Thank you so much for carrying our flip-flaps. Thanks for hanging with me. It was a little bit longer today because of all the elements, so thanks for hanging with me. Come back soon so you don't miss a single thing right here on Snips by Kelly. Bye-bye, everyone.